Welcome to the Green Medicine Podcast. I'm your host, Barbara Malarski, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have Amanda Lynne on the Green Medicine Podcast today. Welcome, Amanda. Amanda is a woman of many, many talents. She's also been my friend for 25 years and a colleague. She's an internationally accredited kinesiologist, aromatherapist, teacher, and the founder and creator of the Eye-motional Processes, which are 6 kinesiology meditation processes that combine eye movements and auditory processing. They hold the key to releasing trauma and stress, health and healing. Today we're going to hear about what kinesiology is and discover what the eye-motional processes are and how they came about. Amanda developed the eye-motional processes at a time in her life when she was suffering much adversity and trauma. During this podcast, Amanda is going to share her journey with you and how the emotional processes were born. Amanda, so pleased you're here. Amanda, love to hear about what holistic kinesiology is and how long you've actually been a practitioner for.
Well, thanks, Barb, and thank you so much for having me on. It's so wonderful to spend time with you, and I love what you've done with the School of Green Medicine. I just want to say that. So, holistic kinesiology is the use of manual muscle testing for biofeedback of the nervous system. Developed originally by Dr. Robert Lovett, who was an orthopedic surgeon. Then many years later, in 1964, manual muscle testing was picked up by Dr. George Goodhart, who's a chiropractor. From there, kinesiology and holistic kinesiology and applied kinesiology was born, and it looks at the stress that's held in a person's body, in their chemical disposition, their mental and emotional disposition, and their structural disposition, and their energetic being. That's kinesiology. There's also another strand of kinesiology that focuses more on physical sports and gymnastics, and it works on strapping and taping, and it was developed in 1854. So there are 2 different strands. When we talk about holistic kinesiology, we're talking more down the Dr. George Goodhart
it's
phase.
so interesting to me because I've been having kinesiology with you for, over 20 years, and I never knew that until we talked recently about kinesiology, and that kinesiology comes from the taping actually is more kind of connected to what happens in America, whereas holistic kinesiology is more, European or Australasian.
Yes.
So that's fascinating to me. And how many years have you been working as a kinesiologist for?
Oh, I started my journey in 1998 when I found a kinesiologist to deal with what had been a long-standing childhood asthma, and having had an asthma attack in my late 20s and being in hospital, I came out of that hospital and I thought, I am never going to be back in this hospital with asthma again. There's something deeper going on. And I found a brochure to go to a kinesiologist to look at the bio-emotional layers of my disease, and that spoke to me. So I went, and after 6 months of big invasive work, we did a lot of muscle testing. We found out the subconscious stress that was causing that disease to stay intact. And then after 6 months, my kinesiologist said, would you like to come and learn it? So I started my training in 1999.
Wow.
And since then, I've picked up 5 different strands of kinesiology training.
That's incredible. I mean, you've got an exceptional background and training, and that's what I love that's so comprehensive about the work that you do. And I think my experience of kinesiology, and also my clients, because, it's great being able to cross-refer, is working on that emotional component, because often, in talk therapy, people don't necessarily know the deeper reasons why they might be experiencing certain kind of, problems physically or mentally. But that's what I love about kinesiology, how it bypasses the conscious mind and works on the unconscious material that you don't even know is there. It's absolutely brilliant. So I'm very, very interested to talk with you about the emotional processes and how they came into being developed. And
Of course.
Yeah,
well, that's my masterpiece of work, and it's brain rewiring kinesiology through the use of eye movements and eye positions. Now, a lot of people have heard of EMDR, or eye movement desensitization reprocessing, developed by psychologist Francine Chapereau in 1985. But what many people don't know, Barb, is that eye movement kinesiology was developed 3 years prior to that. in 1982 by Dr. George Goodhart. And in that, he found that certain eye positions held stress and trauma. And if you think about it, when we roll our eyes in a certain way in displeasure, we're actually capturing a memory, a stress, a trauma that's in our subconscious or unconscious mind. Because trauma and stress gets locked in a different part of our brain, coding of that can't be processed well in the brain. It gets stuck into the limbic system. So when we have a memory and we roll our eyes or we look in a certain way when a trauma occurs, that gets stuck as a memory, as a trauma, and then it imprints in the brain. And people find it hard to move past that memory, past that trauma. For kinesiologists, what we do is we use some muscle testing to look at what is the eye position of stress, what is behind that, what emotions, what feelings, what bio-emotional layers in the body are being stored, so that the person can bring the unknown stress to the known. And they'll often say, oh yes. I recently had a client who had been in a car accident, and this particular client at point of trauma dashed his eyes across to the right, and that's where his eyes had remained in a trauma position.
Wow,
so when something, it was amazing. And I get that a lot. So we're looking at when did this point of trauma occur? And when we see that trauma, we say, well, this is why this person can't deal with sudden things that they don't know the outcome of, because they'll dash their eyes and will bring up unconscious emotions. So that's what Eye-motional Processes does. It delves into and works upon the founders of eye movement kinesiology, which is Dr. George Goodhart, and those other kinesiologists that came after him, and their research. And what I've gone and done since 2013 is develop upon that material, but more so as a way to heal myself. So there are 12 eye positions and different eye stress positions that delve into what Eye-motional Processes can release.
Wow, that's so interesting. I mean, I think it's very fascinating that you did that too during a time when you were going through like a lot of difficulty and trauma yourself. And I think if you're happy to share some of that, might be very helpful for viewers to hear, some of what your journey is and how that's actually helped you develop this, incredible tool.
Absolutely. Well, like anyone who's got trauma that's locked in there, generally most of the time it's come from childhood patterns and conditions that you've actually kept locked inside of you. You've got on and you've survived. And then other traumas and different emotional stressors come along. And when that occurred for me in my adult years, I'd had a situation in my family where there was a triple homicide in my family in 2004, and it caused a lot of stress and emotion to come up from my childhood. Not long after, I also got divorced. So both of those traumas remained stuck in me as stress and emotions. And 10 years on, I'd lost a lot of my positive mindset that I had established as a kinesiologist earlier, and I'd lost my way. And you and another friend said to me in 2013, Amanda, what are you doing? Why are you like this? Aren't you using your kinesiology to try to heal your mind and heal your life? Because you're really not on track with this. And I took that and I thought, this is really poignant because I've heard it twice in 1 week from two different people who don't really know each other. So I think there's a message for me. So I went into my spare room and I picked up my clinic tools and I started to muscle test. What did I need to heal? And eye movements came up, auditory processing came up, as did different emotional bands that I was stuck in. And I thought, well, okay, I've got that. I know what I need to do. But it also muscle tested on me that I needed to do it every day. And I thought, well, how am I going to do that? I'm quite unwell physically. My bio-emotional tissue was really out because of my emotional stress and trauma I hadn't processed. So I thought, well, how about I make a kinesiology meditation? So I recorded these in my iPhone and I did my first ever process. So between February to August 2013, I created 6 different processes as I noticed those emotions come up. And I worked through, and then I created the chart of emotions that talks to how we identify our feelings. So we can actually consciously go, okay, that's there, but some of that is unconscious too and subconscious. So over time, my life radically improved, as you know. My health radically improved, my mindset radically improved. And in 2019, I thought, I think I need to share this with the world, but beforehand, I want to test it on 100 case studies. So I went through a process of 100 case studies in 2019 to check the results were as remarkable as I had. And it was. So the very next year, I had them professionally recorded.
Wow. And look, I'm so thrilled to say that I was part of that every week for 12 or it might have even been 18 months, I received, kinesiology from you using the Eye-motional Processes. And I can certainly say that I felt really quite some changes in myself. I could also viscerally feel the result of actually doing the Eye-motional Processes and how I felt at the beginning if I came in with a certain issue, and then how I felt afterwards. And it was fantastic for me, not just on a personal level, but also as a practitioner, because it's so helpful for me now to use as a tool for my clients, or to refer my clients to you to be able to use the tool as well. So it's kind of been tested in my own personal laboratory of, my own kind of life. And I think that's kind of critical in terms of like research or evidence-based understanding of, how it actually works and what the results are. So it's just amazing. So
well, thank you, Barb.
What kind of things can, I shared a little bit about what I experienced when, I received it, but what sort of things could one expect by doing the emotional processes? Because we're all individuals, so we're all going to have different responses.
Yes,
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it is true. Like, as I said earlier, trauma and stress it can't be processed in the right way in the brain. It becomes an imprint. And then we become limbically oriented. Each one of us has our own story. And behind that story is a trauma or a childhood experience or a human drama or an emotional relationship that's quite difficult. And with that comes emotional stress and trauma, and that gets locked in the brain in a different way. It's not processed properly. But when we start to use eye-motional processes, much like EMDR, we start to not remove those stress and trauma memories, but change where they go to in the brain, diffuse their limbic stress orientation, and start to put them into the brain in a way that's conscious, accepted, processed, and resolved. And in that, we're changing the grooves of the brain.
Yeah, okay. So when you're talking about brain rewiring, you're really talking about changing the way that the brain works, which is
absolutely
pretty powerful, because I imagine once, you make those shifts in the brain, then that's going to impact on all different aspects throughout your whole life as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely, because thought equals form, and what we think, we actually tend to generate. So we will see an experience out there, and we will attach to that, because it's like some of the trauma we've got in ourselves that hasn't been resolved yet. And, the brain being neuroplastic, it's got this beautiful way of changing form. When we tap into some of the stress positions in my world, the 12 eye positions, and each one of the processes attaches to the different eye positions in various ways. So people are listening to maybe a 16 to a 22-minute process, not really understanding that while they're doing these eye positions and thinking about this particular story that's poignant and on their mind, they're also rewiring some old stories that might be related to it.
It's so fascinating.
It is, and it's sustainable change.
What I like about it too is that it's accessible. Like, people can purchase the emotional processes and just do them at their leisure, and they're only short. I think the longest one, as you said, is 22 minutes. You mentioned earlier too, you're talking about the chart of emotions.
Yep.
What is the chart of emotions? Like, say I was someone who had no background at all in any of the work that you do, and I really wanted to kind of use the emotional processes. How would I do that using the chart of emotions, which is part of it?
That's a great question. The chart of emotions is an easy identifier because, as you know, sometimes we can't even process or tap into what we're really feeling. We might have a range of emotional fluctuations, and the chart helps us to identify what is it that I'm really feeling. Am I feeling frustrated? Then it's process blue. Maybe look at the chart and say, no, I'm really feeling sad about this. Well, then you're on process orange. So it helps you identify which process do I need at this given moment to go and listen to in the comfort of my home about the situation that's stressed in my brain or in my body, in my bio-emotional being, so I can change how I see and think and my beliefs about this.
And it's not just one emotion to each kind of colour.
No.
It's how many emotions have you identified, like just roughly in each kind of...
There's 35 different emotions
Yes.
in the chart of emotions underneath the violet band on the chart. So between the red and the indigo is 35 different low vibration negative emotions. Now we as humans experience up to 27 emotions a day. So we're really covering a broad range of those emotions through the chart.
I wonder if you could, to the viewers who are actually listening to us, watching us, show the chart, and then at the end what we can do is refer people who are just listening to us to your website so they can go on and actually see what the chart of emotions looks like.
Absolutely.
I'd love to.
So the chart of emotions, as you can see on the screen, begins essentially at process red at the bottom. There's 4 different emotions at bottom of process red, and that's because we're talking about wave frequencies, emotional frequencies. As you know, some emotions are more dense than others. So if you look at, say, process orange as an emotion, the second one up from the chart as depressed, somebody that's depressed can be in bed, unwell, don't want to get out, lack of motivation. But say someone in process blue emotion having anger or frustration or irritation has got more fire in their belly, they're moving more, it's got more of an intense energy. So the emotional chart goes in frequencies. So from process red being the lowest at 650 nanometers. Now think about a microwave is 700 nanometers. So if your emotions are down in the red at 650 nanometers, you're operating at the same level as a microwave.
Wow.
Okay? That's not great.
No.
And that's why those emotions feel so dense and draining, especially if we've had them ourselves or around someone with them. And then as we go up the chart, we move up in the phase of the nanometers. So we might go into a wavelength in the indigo where it's 450 nanometers. And up into the cosmic layers, we're looking at the 300, 400 nanometer layer, which is the cosmic layer. So these are all about emotional energies on the chart.
So this is so fascinating. So we're talking about frequency fields, each of them having a weighting or an energy, How did you come up with that? How were you able to measure that, or was this just something that came out of other work as well?
Yeah, Nikola Tesla,
he said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, you've got to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. That concept aligns perfectly with Isaac Newton's work on color frequencies. He goes into the light frequencies that travel at the speed of 300,000 kilometers per second. By blending Tesla's insights on energy and vibration and Newton's color theory and vibration, the chart of emotions provides a framework for checking in on your emotions and knowing whether they're light or heavy and what you can do about them to rewire them and change the frequency of them into more improved feelings.
So it makes sense that if I'm in a protracted or a long stage of feeling depressed, that then I get physical symptoms that match. Like I might feel heavy, I might feel a lot of physical symptoms that might relate to not being able to sleep properly. I might not feel very connected or communicative. There's a whole range of symptoms. So we're saying there's a physical manifestation as well.
Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head before when you said everybody manifests differently. But emotions are energy in motion. And bio-emotional tissue, which is your body, takes on emotional energy. And then we get dis-ease. And if you love the work of Louise Hay, she's all about the emotions and the beliefs create the dis-ease. And if you want to heal the dis-ease or get some sort of calm from the dis-ease, you've got to look at the emotional cause. That's why we work so well together in our clinical settings. And when it comes to, going back to how this chart was even formed and the processes were created, as I said earlier, having had a triple homicide in my family in 2004, and then within a year having my divorce occur because of the stress and the trauma, all those things broke down, and my whole life as I knew it broke down. I lost everything, including my business. And then I held on to and built upon these emotions of anger, worry, resentment, powerlessness, fear. And I just kept adding to it over a 10-year period. And then in 2013, after our little chat and my other girlfriend's chat in the same week, from February 2013, I started with indigo, which was the top. I started right up here because I felt overwhelmed with my emotions, unheard. I was suffering deeply with fibromyalgia. I was tired of my body. There was a lot of emotional biotissue going on. In February the 27th, 2013, I then switched into Process Blue because I noticed I was feeling angry and frustrated. So in that 6 months of 2013 where these processes were created, as I noticed an emotion come up in me, I think, I don't have a process for that. I haven't rewired those feelings. I need to go and create one. So in the creation of the processes, in kinesiology, we use hand modes and formats. So we might put like mudras. Kinesiology uses meditative mudras, and each one of those mudras opens a portal of energy. And when we muscle test against that mudra, we're opening a portal of energy and information on that person. When it came to creating these processes, different portals of energy and mudras have been placed into them inside the recording studio to create the energy frequencies that they hold today.
Wow, that's so powerful. I use Insight Timer from time to time, and that's an app that has a lot of meditations and uses music as well. But to have something like the Eye-motional Processes that actually has something like a mudra or the hand modes that are used in kinesiology really makes it very powerful and potent. And I can see, and I've experienced it myself, of course, how powerful it is, because having experienced it myself and feeling quite different after listening to 20 minutes of an eye-motional process. You know, what are other people's experiences, or what might they experience when they're doing the eye-motional processes?
That's a great question. And I go back to, I call it a little bit of kinesiology in your back pocket.
Okay.
So when you want that little topper, or if you can't get to a session, which of course kinesiologists are using this internationally on their clients, this tool, but you can also use it for your home play, for your home support, or as a self-guided tool if you're just looking for that mindset change. So what occurs is, say you choose a process, and you might choose Process Blue, for example, 22 minutes. The start of that is all energetic frequency. So it's like a meditation. So you enter in through the meditation, and my sound healer, Nerese, who put all the background music on, she's incredible. She's very, very clever at crafting very energetic, meditative pieces of music.
She is.
So she's got the sound bowls and the forks and all the tuning pieces in there. And so you start this meditative space, and in that, like everything, our amygdala starts to atrophy. We start to relax inside the limbic system, as does occur in any meditative space. But then we start the eye positions. And we're asked, through my voice, you're guided, think about these emotions and these stories that are attached to these emotions as you move your eyes left to right, or up and down, or in a circular position. And those are the things we're asking people to think about. And in doing that, they're rewiring their thoughts. Now, people say to me, I don't understand. I've got to think about negative things and hear negative emotions said to me. How's that improving anything? And I say, because trauma gets locked in the brain in a different way, and so does stress. It's coded differently. So we need to have those eye positions and the auditory processing of those words, because you're going to be thinking about those terrible stories anyway. But when you're rewiring your brain and changing the coding and changing the grooves around those trauma stories, you're changing your mind, you're changing your emotions and your beliefs and your life.
Wow. And I think viewers would love to hear some of the success stories, apart from your own success story, of people that you've worked with, and, you know, some of the changes that have happened. I'd certainly be really interested to hear about it.
Yeah, there are so many. Like, there's hundreds. Like, obviously, you can do eye-motional processes inside a kinesiology clinic setting, as the kinesiologists are doing now, or you can do it self-guided. So some of the things that I've had come up is people that have had childhood traumas. that they don't really want to go to a session and have the cognitive discussions and start to open up about things, especially when it comes to shame and blame. So they might do a process yellow in this case, and they'll email me and say, oh my goodness, from the very first process, I felt lighter. I don't feel as attached to that story. And I've had people whose relationships have improved and changed, not because the person changed, the external person, but because they did the inner work.
And their experience of the event that happened actually has changed their perception, and so therefore how they relate as well.
Absolutely. And the lives they start to live. Because when we're not living our life's purpose, it's because we're stuck in a trauma, stress, or human drama story. It is just that simple. And so many people don't live their life's purpose. But when we start to rewire those stories, we don't realise we're starting to expand our consciousness, and our mind isn't filled with trauma stories and beliefs and doubt and emotions. It starts to become more expansive. So we start to see people go, I've always wanted to do this business and now I'm doing it. Or I've always wanted to move overseas and now I'm doing it. It's that bravery.
Look, it's so beautiful because it's so sad to think that, when we have a trauma or an event or an experience in our life, that then sometimes can inform the rest of our life.
Definitely.
And by using a tool like the emotional processes, this can really help shift that so that people can really live the life that we're all here to live, which is actually to live out our passion and to do the things that we really love as well. So I'm really thrilled, to be part of this, and that, I think it's fantastic that you've developed a tool that's going to help so many people, and already is.
Yeah, it already is. And I want to jump into what you just said too. Like, some of the things that people say is, oh, now I've actually changed my mindset and my beliefs. I've had this for 40 years or 50, 60, 20 years, and now I regret that. And I said, don't worry. I created process past regrets just for you.
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, so people have got something they can work on that regret. But look, it's all part of life's learnings anyway. I mean, we're having this human experience, so of course, this is how we all change and develop. Look, Amanda, it's been absolutely amazing having you on the Green Medicine podcast. Thank you so much for coming. And I know that viewers and, people who are listening are going to be very keen to hop onto your website, see what you're doing, but also see where they can purchase the Eye-motional Processes.
Yes.
So how do people find you?
Okay, so jump on board, Eye-motional Processes.com.
Fantastic.
But not I with an I, capital I, EYE, Eye-motional Processes.com.
And if they go onto that website, they'll be directed to where they can go to purchase the Eye-motional Processes?
Absolutely. And we've got the coaching program. People can come, because a lot of people want to come and work with me, and I don't see individual clients anymore. So to do that, if they wanted an individualised session, they'd need to go to one of my trained kinesiologists.
Yes, fantastic.
But otherwise, if they want to work with me, they just engage in the monthly program, the coaching, the live coaching.
That's great. Thank you so much, Amanda.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on board.
Yeah, it's been wonderful.
So wonderful. And I look forward to what we're going to be doing together in the space of emotions.
Well, wasn't that fantastic? I'm just so thrilled that Amanda could be part of the Green Medicine podcast. And look, I look forward to having Amanda back at some other future time, and we can take a deeper dive and talk more about the emotional processes and other work that she's doing. Thank you very much for listening today, and I look forward to talking with you again in the future.
Barbara Malarski is a doctor of Chinese medicine with 25 years clinical expertise. She has a teaching background, establishing a natural therapies program in Cairns, far north Queensland, Australia, where she trained over 750 students in remedial massage and oriental health medicine. Her other passion developed through working with First Nations people in New Zealand, where she was born, and 3 decades in Australia on Cape York and in New South Wales, working with Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander communities. These experiences have enriched her life through deep connection with people and the environments they live in. Barbara resides in Oak Beach, far north Queensland, on 2 acres of forest that border World Heritage listed forest. She sees herself as a privileged custodian.